was run by a windmill. I mean, Jake, we had windmills stretching across this country, but today the neighborhood association don't want you to have one.
Well, that's because they have been taught that everybody ought to look exactly the same. You go up to Boston, I watch this old house on TV, and I like to watch them build things, but they've had to go through permits and committees on some of these restorations or rebuilding of homes up there so that they match some society overlord group that has matched everybody else's. And that's not rugged American individualism.
They have been attacking that. You know, I mean, I volunteered to go fight communism in 1964 in Vietnam. I never went over there. Again, God stepped in, didn't let me go. But I realized that every plank on the Communist Manifesto was intact, not in Vietnam, but here in America. Every plank, and has been since 1913 when they gave us plank number 5, the central bank. And the government control of agriculture, the government control of education, that's communism. They just don't call it communism anymore. Oh, well, some of my best friends said Roosevelt, one of our Jewish presidents, and you know, I know that you don't necessarily agree that the Jews have been the source of every one of our wars, and they're behind the weapons manufacturing. Israel is, in my opinion, a criminal country pretending to be the Israelites of old. They're not. They're simply not. They came from a country called Khazaria. Go ahead.
You complicate your statements so I can neither agree with it or support it. It's, when you say they have financed these things, how can you deny that? That's an encyclopedia. That's well documented. I don't think they're the evil force. In Ephesians 6, it warns us that we're against the principalities of evil, not necessarily the stupid people running it. However, and I will try to make this like to a great deal agree with you because I really do. I just don't want to bash the people that are involved in something. They may not even know what they're doing.
Well, but we'd have to include the Christians in that too. I mean, the Christians have forgotten who they were. They forgot who they were. The Bible told us they would. You know. Go ahead.
Well, we're back again. We could have Jesus running around out here trying to fix this. He'd be fixing the same problem he did 2,000 years ago or tried to in what should have been the Mecca, and that's Jerusalem. But the Pharisees were bankers. They were running a new world order then. There's nothing new about that new world order. It's the same old, same old. The Pharisees, Jesus went nose to nose with them. He said, I've tried to tell you, I've tried to set this up, I've tried to show you that I am the answer to all of your studies and prayer. I am the Messiah. I'm going to turn all this around. And the people that flirted that were the very people that should have said, yeah, we studied this all our lives. We're professionals. We went through seminary, and we studied this. And this is the guy, and this is what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to change. And he even cleaned out the temple twice. And what was it for? The one term that you keep remembering is money changing. That's banking. They had a treasury in the temple. That's banking. They offered merchandising. That's banking. And that is the paradigm that has been followed by leadership ever since then. And every time they go that route, we're in Babylon. That's the definition of Babylonian ideology. It's banking. It's the money handling. It's the control of people through their finances. And here we are again, and that is so foreign. That's the evil that controls and literally runs everything. And like you said, and I have to agree, you know, I said that the groups like the Rothschilds and the European Common Market have financed many a war. They have dictated or orchestrated those things to suit their own interest. It was not for the sake of godly people. It was not for the sake of any righteous approach. It was to line their pockets. It was to keep control. And, you know, the power corrupts. It has become such an insidious thing that I think it is going to be extremely hard, if not impossible, to get rid of. Now, you said that we are going to provide hope, which you and I always try to do.
Well,
I think we get to win a few battles before.
You know, Jake, somebody told me once, and I've been doing this for a long time, you know that, you know, and somebody told me once, they don't have the power that they want you to believe they have. If they did, we'd still be under the Syrian Empire, we'd still be under the Roman Empire, we'd still be under the English Empire, you know, which on which the sun never sets. We would still be there. And
you're absolutely right. That is an excellent point. That you know, God has given victory. We have won the war. We have given victories, which, and again, you go back to Paul's writings in Revelation. The Holy Spirit has been orchestrating some of these stops that have been put in place, or you would be absolutely, I mean, you are absolutely right, or Syria, Babylon, whatever, would still be running everything, controlling everything, and it'd be absolutely intolerable, terrifying, so oppressive, no one could even stand to stay alive. That, you're absolutely right, and I never even thought of that point, but that is excellent.
God didn't stop talking to us. Now here's the one thing that I've got a bone to pick with the people you call the churchiosity or religiosity. You know,
there's more than one bone, right?
more than one bone, but they want you to be afraid. They don't want you to understand what Jesus told you, that you can do what I do and more. In other words, God is within us. God is what holds the atoms together. God is what formed us, made us into His image, and He put a spark of divinity within us that we call the soul, or we call a conscience. Of course, if you get a conscience, if you're a soldier and you feel bad about going over and bombing a bunch of farmers in Vietnam, about killing a bunch of families in Iraq, if you feel bad about that, they want to drug you. They want to drug you down. And I believe that if you don't have post-traumatic stress syndrome, then you're one sick son of a gun. You know, that's called conscience. That's called conscience. And frankly, I don't want to make war no more. I'm glad I didn't have to go over and kill anyone. And you know, I've written books 45 years ago that I'm working on. I'm rewriting and updating today. As a matter of fact, I'll start on it today. Since I've got most of my websites fixed up, I've got the store. So, folks, you can get some of my older books or some of my current books. Mystery Babylon is used by Timothy Bible College as a textbook because I've got the history of the Rothschilds, I've got the history of the whole patriot movement in this country, I've got the statements of Homeland Security, which is simply the KGB revised, the Stasi revised. They're stocking up hollow point bullets. Now, Department of Homeland Security, I mean, they're not going overseas. They're not planning on using those bullets overseas, so they're going after us. That means you got to get smart. You got to get wise. And how do we fight global government? Jake, this is the message that I think.
You're the political know what it is they've done to actually thwart an effort of terrorism. Did I miss it?
Yes, sir, you did. The thing that they're trying to thwart is me. It's why I don't fly. I'm not taking my boots off for no foreigners. You know, I'm not going through no X-ray machine that will probably give me cancer. And they haven't caught a terrorist, as I put it in my film, True Face of FEMA. You have in America today, now True Face of FEMA, folks, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting. It took place in Kirtland Air Force Base at Sandia Labs, and my friend John Gentry went over there and filmed it. It's in case of a single outbreak of smallpox, we'll need 400,000 in the major metropolitan area. You know, if it was a single case of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. I took that personally. That's Colonel John Brinkerhoff on my film. And that's what they want. They want you to line up in the Kmart parking lot to take a vaccination that will give you whatever disease is supposed to counteract. And if it doesn't,
wait a minute. I don't understand this. We're going to take the disease in order to stop it. I know that it was promoted years ago and everybody bought into it, but you just hit a point that really isn't logical.
We have wiped out smallpox for 100 years, but in the Homeland Security meeting, lecturing law enforcement, we'll need 400,000 troops because some Americans just won't follow orders. Some of us won't line up on the Kmart parking lot to take a vaccine for a disease that's been wiped out in this country for 100 years. Now, that should have been... Yes, sir?
Did those medical people actually wipe out the disease with the vaccine, or did they wipe it out because they stopped the cycle of the disease by burning things and by cutting off those which had it from those that didn't? Instead of giving credit to the so-called inoculation, maybe it was that they did as the Old Testament recommended, worship thing, anything to beat disease, burn it, isolate those people until the disease is contained, and treat them as if they had it, and keep the source away from them until the disease has no host to go to, and you stop the cycle so that disease doesn't flourish anymore. I believe, and you know I promote this all the time, that God provided us a way of doing this, and it didn't have anything to do with sticking a needle in our arms or putting a patch on us of some parasite, so the parasite was to have an entrance somewhere into our body. I think that's ludicrous, and you know, I might have some fuss with the medical community, but they haven't done such a good job of keeping us from all these diseases. They claim that they do, but none of it works.
Jake, that's another scam. You know, I don't go to doctors. I don't go to hospitals, and I'm 67 years old, and I'm 67 years old, and I can still kick the ass of a 24-year-old, you know? And I know you can too. But you know, the medical profession is another scam, like fractional banking. This is the whole Pharisee scam. This is the Rockefellers started the medical the National Medical Association, or whatever the hell that is, and they've been the pharmaceutical industry. There is more of a markup on Valium than there is on cocaine or heroin. And like I said, before 1913, You could go into a store and get heroin. I think they called it laudanum. You could, you wanted cocaine, all you had to do was buy a Coca-Cola. And
Most
cannabis,
doctors had that for extreme pain that Martin was talking about.
yeah, yeah. And we weren't a nation of drug addicts. Now, I'll be real straight with people, man. I wanted to know everything. I mean, somebody asked me, what do you want? I said, I want to know. I want to know the truth about everything, and I've done every drug that God ever made or that man ever made out of what God gave us. I'm not a drug addict. You know, when I was in Miami, I did cocaine until I learned that the CIA was making all the money off of it, and I boycotted it. Haven't done it since. There is no drug. There is no taking a drug that or taking a plant, smoking a plant that God gave us. Nobody's ever died from smoking cannabis. And more people, 50 people a year die from taking Bayer aspirin or St. Joseph aspirin. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over again. They want to sell you something you don't need. They want to loan you money they don't have. And this is financial tyranny.
That's that stinking Babylonian ideology that it's all about the stinking money. And it always is, isn't it?
It is. It's about the money. It's about the money, and and they're printing the money. It's like Carl Kling said in one of his songs. I used to be almost jealous of Carl Kling because I'd do a 1 hour radio show, and in 3 minutes he got more information out in a song than I got out in the hour. He said, if you print your own money on your very own printing press, pretty soon you can buy up the whole neighborhood. And our founding father, Thomas Jefferson, warned us, if you ever allow the banks, a private bank, to issue your money, your children the banks and the corporations that spring up around them, will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquered. That's history, folks. That's the founding fathers.
Amen.
But that's what's happening to us today. So there's a way to do that. We can live in lower cost structures. I mean, that's one of the reasons I modeled my Liberty Village. Liberty Village is a simple concept, and it doesn't have to be on the family farm. It could be in a neighborhood if you actually talk to your neighbors, if you worked with your neighbors, you turned your backyards into gardens and your roof into solar panels. You wouldn't need the electric companies. You wouldn't need the gas companies. You wouldn't need the foreign food and the genetically modified food. You would be healthy. You wouldn't need the doctors. You wouldn't need the medicine. And that really is our answer. It's what God meant when He told us to come out of her. In fact, God gave us the wind. God gave us the sun. God gave us magnetics. God even gave us radiation. And I had a gentleman on my show that discovered these radioactive stones, mild radioactivity, that if you put them in your water, it cures you, it heals you. It's not the radiation given to you by the former Homeland Security Director, Michael, son of the devil, Chernoff. Here, walk through this. We got to check and make sure you don't have any dangerous cough medicine or anything on you. So walk through this radiation machine that surely will give you cancer, especially if you're a frequent flyer. That's why my transportation right now is a Harley. I don't fly nowhere. I'm not taking my boots off for no foreigners. I'm not letting my luggage be funneled through so somebody can steal anything of value I've got in it under the guise of TSA. And they want to put these TSA guys, they want to put them on the highway. They want you to pull over at rest stops so they can search you, so they can x-ray you. No, sir, I'm not doing that. And that's exactly what Colonel John Brinkerhoff was talking about when he said some Americans just won't follow orders. Some of them won't line up on that Kmart parking lot to get those vaccinations that'll give them the disease that's been conquered for 100 years. Come on, folks. Now, there is still smallpox around there, but it's in government laboratories. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about, Jake, is that what they've done is taken over our education system. They've turned our public schools into public fool systems, and they are indoctrinating. They aren't teaching you to think. They want you to memorize, not think, not research. Just memorize, memorize, memorize. And there was only a few people that had better memories than me when I was in school. There were only a few people that maybe scored higher than me, that maybe had a little bit higher IQ than me. And they were fools. Most of them, they were fools. They had no common sense whatsoever. And that is, today, we wouldn't have, if everybody had followed your lead when we started this 20 years ago, started the Free American 20 years ago, started this radio show 20 years ago, if they had followed your lead with the Little Red Schoolhouse, with the homeschooling, with the Timothy Bible College, we wouldn't have had Sandy Hooks, we wouldn't have had Columbines, and all of the Columbines were done.
Amen.
They were done by little Jewish kids, young Jewish kids that had been drugged with the pharmaceuticals. You know, nobody smokes pot, goes out and murders a whole schoolyard full of children. Nobody does that. But they'll damn sure do it on Luvox or Valium or any of the other Halcyon, Haldol, any other the psychoactives out there. And I've worked with people that were shot at Columbine and were trying to.
In our 18 different schools, in our 18 different schools that we have established, and they're not ours, you know, we just give them away as soon as they get set up. We may spend money to get it going and you know, put money in it to crank it up. But once they get going, we can lose at their school. But the last I heard, we have never had an incident of violence in any of them. And we have no guns and badges in the hall, and we are not indoctrinating the students. We are actually encouraging them to think for themselves that they do have the right. Of course, we take Constitution. But we didn't have that. But you're absolutely right. And you have to treat these young people as future adults that have rights. They have a right to their level. That the Bible says, raise up a child in the way that he should go. People don't read that right. It's not the way we think he ought to go. It's the way he should go. Which means he ought to have some choice in his future. He ought to have some choice in his choice of what he wants to do with his life. He doesn't even have to be right. He still ought to have the choice. And that's guaranteed by our Constitution. But it's been denied. We've been so glossed over the so many opinions of guys and judges that the Constitution doesn't even show up in force anymore. It's not the rules of law.
Let me share a quote from a former president. That's just a goddamn piece of paper. Now I find a real problem with that. That and the I think it was that president's father who said you know, now we can see a new world coming into view. Henceforth we pledge our allegiance to the new world order. Folks, that is the biggest con.
We're not going to have no taxes, and 2 weeks later we have them.
Yeah, and the one that referred to the one that referred to the Constitution as a goddamn piece of paper is. And by the way, that Constitution was printed on hemp paper. That was the same one that handed $2 trillion, not 2 billion, $2 trillion to the same bankers that printed the money, your grandchildren, folks, unless you take back this country, until you follow some advice here,
Amen.
your grandchildren will never pay off the interest on that debt. $2 trillion to the bankers that printed the money. Now that was George Bush. So you can bash Obama all you want. Frankly, I don't see any difference. The Republicans and the Democrats are two wings of the same bird. Divide and conquer. And
And that's a chicken, not an eagle.
that's what. No, it's a vulture. It's a global vulture. In my a global vulture, man. Here, take a. I won't even pull the feather out of one of those things that wasn't quick enough to get out of eating a carrion on the road. That's what the globalization is. It's a global vulture, and that's why this is one of the reasons I wrote Mystery Babylon, New World Order Unveiled. And it says right on the cover, folks. 2,000 years ago, the Bible told us of the coming of the New World Order of the eighth beast, the mark of the beast, and warned us about the Jews who say they are Jews but are not. Jesus told us they were liars and of their father Satan. In this book, the past meets the future. Now, that means there's a lot of Jews out there that aren't evil, that are trying to do the wrong thing. They may be following their Pharisees, just like the Christians are following their 501c3 corporation pastors, the ones and they're going to those churches with the Masonic cornerstone on it, never realizing that Albert Pike told you they were worshiping the devil, never understanding that the Jews who say they're Jews 200 years ago wrote the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, the blueprint for the plan for one world government with Satan at the top of it. And you notice I use the term Satan rather than Lucifer, because I think they demonized Lucifer. I think he might have been the good angel, but you may disagree with me on it, but I'm the one writing that fiction book.
Well, let me give you Acts 5 as one thing, and I like the direction you're going, and if you give me just a minute, I want to make 2 points before you come back.
I'm getting me another cup of coffee. Go ahead. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. Acts chapter 5, the apostle John and I think it was Peter came out of a trial. They had been before a judge, a magistrate, and he told them, "Man, you're causing problems here in Jerusalem. You're causing problems in this town. You're running around talking about this Jesus this is a problem for us. If you do this anymore, or if you preach Jesus anymore in our streets, we're going to kill you." That's what they said to him. And turned them loose. Out on the street, I don't know how long after, it couldn't have been very long after, they turned to each other and say, we ought to serve God rather than man. And I think that's the thing that has been missed by the people that we call the American Christian patriot, is that we were founded as a Christian nation on that same kind of principle. It's the reason that we bailed out, that the European or the Englishman bailed out of that tyranny and that oppression over there, was that the church politically had total control of the church and ran it the way they wanted to and perverted it. And they have perverted it ever since the early church. And the problem is that we put into the Constitution and into the Declaration of Independence that we didn't ever want to get into the books again. And Jefferson and some other people that were part of the founding fathers warned us, and that Clay read one of the quotes. There's another one that you cannot cornerstone in it. Read the silly thing if you don't believe it. It will say worshipful master, and I guarantee you the name's not Jesus that they have engraved into that thing, chiseled into the rock. They have some human name that's a bit of the local Masonic lodge. That's, again, everything God taught.
Well, the Pharisees have taken over again. The Pharisees are in the churches. They just don't call them Pharisees anymore. Again, it's the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, and they've. I'm gonna find the a quote here from I believe it was Cornwallis. He warned George Washington that in 200 years the Pharisaic religion would take over our Christian society or our Christian religion, and we wouldn't even be able to recognize it. We would be enslaved again and again and again. And I think that's what the Pharisees did. They had the idols. They had the idols. Well, you had to donate to the idols. And I saw a great movie with Anthony Quinn about the Muslims leaving and going to a Christian country under a Christian king, and they were termed religious rebels. And the king asked them, "Well, what do what do you think about Jesus? What does Jesus mean to you?" And they said, "God sent him to you. God sent him. The angels sent him." And the only disagreement was they didn't necessarily refer to him as God. And I almost agree with that, Jake. I think in the Council of Nicaea, they tried to promote Jesus to the status of God because they didn't want men like you and I aspiring to be the kind of man he was. And I know that the Holy Spirit talks to you, and I know that the Holy Spirit talks to me, and and protects me. They would have killed me by now if I didn't have some kind of protection.
Amen. Well, I'm not going to get into particulars because yes and no again. The problem with, and this is something we can't debate because it's God's territory. They are supposed to be that Godhead is supposed to be the three in one and the one in three, yet a part of that character or that persona that you call God, that entity, got into a human form, and I have to fully agree with you on this. When you devise some way of taking that away from us, like you said, we're going to do greater things, that the kingdom of God, according to Luke, is within us, and those sort of things that, yes, and it's back to control. If we can, as a controlling entity, or wanting to be a controlling entity, take away your right to succeed, your right to self-government, your right to be what Jesus said to be, like him, and use your power and your love and your tools to help fellow man literally into communityism, then you avoid communism. But when a small group can talk you into believing that, okay, that's something way over there, and you can't be like Jesus, and you can't be that thing, that you're merely going to be what we indoctrinate you to be, now you're in present-day America.
We do have a choice. We can make the decisions, and the Holy Spirit is alive and well on the internet. Now, I just saw something the other day. Some of the rabbis who are the modern day Pharisees, many of them, and so are a lot of your modern day preachers like John Hagee that are trying to drum up support for the criminal state of Israel pretending to be Israelites. Again, Jews who say they're Jews but are not. You know, we've really got to stand up against that. We've got the way to do it. We can get back to now. Gerald Celente, and I know you may have to cut out early today. You can go any time that you want. Gerald Celente has been talking about what's going on in Syria. We're starting another war here. They've got another war that they're starting. We have to just say, no, Jesus wouldn't be bombing anybody. We ain't going to bomb anybody. We've got to stop that because otherwise we are going to become the Palestinians, the American Christians, the Russian Christians. When the communists took over, they killed 60 million white Russian Christians. The only difference between them and Americans is they spoke Russian. And
well, we couldn't forget everybody else's business anyway. We were stronger when we were isolationists, and we only got involved when the sanctity and the level of peace in the world was at stake. This business to go in and trying to flee somebody else's country won't work politically, period.
All right, we gotta stay with me. We gotta take a little 5-minute break. They give us that so we can actually go to the bathroom. We'll be right back with Dr. Jake Wade, and you're listening to Clay Douglas.
You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
A.K.A. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
You're supposed to
That is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. Europe's Young Cultures. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Now, you can share the topic that drive the discussions of your favorite talk shows with TalkStream Live's topic-driven talk radio. List and promote real-time talk radio topics, or post the topics that you want to hear. Hot topics are tweeted and retweeted, and with simple click-to-list audio links. The future of talk radio is topic-driven talk radio. Available now at TalkStreamLive.com.
Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close you are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses and eating and drinking themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Get it?
Revolution Radio. Where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
The moment you realize you're caught in a dream, adventure begins. Put your seat back and trade tables and upgrade conditions. We take a trip to the very fabric of reality. Join me, Andrew Parsons, for Adventures into Reality. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Survival, gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? You have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is. Well, check out our preloaded EMP Group thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it, I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP Group bullet drives to get the full scoop of everything we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, we're back. My guest is Dr. Jake Wade. I worked with Jake years ago when he was starting the Little Red Schoolhouse. That's expanded, become Timothy Bible College. I'm currently, and this is an accredited school right here in Texas. We've got schools that are springing up all over the world here. You've got one just opened up in Africa, don't you, Jake?
That's correct.
We're not talking about anything other than true education. This is accredited here in Texas, and of course that was a battle. They didn't want that to happen, and you've been attacked the same way I've been attacked over and over again. They don't want the truth. They don't want education to get out. They're scared to death of it because. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull up an appropriate Bible quote. I'm not the biblical expert. That's Jake. The truth will set you free.
Yeah.
And I know the founder of the True Seekers. His daughter graduated from the Little Red Schoolhouse, and she got accepted by a college. Could you share some of? You just told me a story about somebody that had gone on to college with their degree from the Little Red Schoolhouse or Timothy Bible College, and she did so well on the test they didn't know where to put her. Could you relate that? I want people to understand that this is an answer, and the colleges that if you're sending your children to a college today, they are being trained to be good prisoners, good inmates. The college and the college libraries, and I can speak from experience here, folks, are just like a prison library. You might as well be in a prison as to be in some of these colleges. And you can pay, they'll loan you the money to go to one of these colleges, but then you'll pay it back with interest, and not only will you pay it back with interest for the loan they gave you, your grandchildren will be paying the interest on the money that was given to the college by the banks. I mean, it's kind of a double whammy. Go ahead.
Mr. Douglas, I've been in both, and I can tell you there are more Bibles available to read in a prison than in most of the college libraries I've been in.
I read most. I did some of my greatest reading in solitary in a Texas Cofield prison. The assistant warden was trying to stop my research. He was really upset that the head of the prison system had ordered him to give me a typewriter so I could write some of my books. And he'd come by visit me in solitaire, and he'd go, "Well, how are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing great, man. I'm getting to read this Bible here. I've got the time. I'm not having to work on the farm. I'm not having to run the farm office. I'm doing great. Thank you for putting me in solitaire." I got out the next day. He didn't like it much. Yes, TBC, Timothy Bible College, is accredited. Wants to know the jerk going by the name Kosher on the chat room. Yes, tell us about this. Tell us about the accredited, the fact that you are accredited, and tell me about this girl that her experience when she did go to another college.
Okay, first let me clear up, it was one of our guys, Joe, whose daughter was the one that went straight out of our program into ACC, and did quite well at 16 years old. Hannah, my kid, I think a year away from graduation, but yes, she went to our school, and of course we went 8.5 years getting, it's not a state accreditation, and we have applied for what they call an acceptance or whatever that's applied for at the state of Texas, but not mandatory and isn't truly an accreditation. The state of Texas would probably tell you we're not on their list of 8 accreditation we're not going to bow, and we told the state protected this, we're not going to bow to a secular approach that is more leaned towards the New World Order ideologies. Rather, we're going to, we told them this, if you want to come out of this, please do so, but send a Bible scholar, because we base everything on the Bible. We begin there, and it works. And the proof is that we probably put, for citywide, over 90% of our graduates into college if they want to go. And I don't know how it is other places, but around here in the Central Texas area, the going rate is somewhere between 17 and 21% college place. So, just do the numbers. Those numbers work. The other side of that is, you said bring up this one little girl that came to us. She really was in a fix. She had been so beat up by the public school system that she really didn't think she was worth anything. She was almost to the point that I didn't want to live anymore, and her mama said, can you help her? And she graduated from the high school program in a year and a half, and 6 months later she came back and said, I need to go further with you, did all work and you do, I want to do business. So we did the business management course, and she went from us to A&M, I think it was Corpus Christi branch, and got accepted, and they called their administration called and said, you must let me she started going down there and said, we don't know where to put this young lady. She's way over educated for being a sophomore here. If you know how to tell her, what do we do with her? I told them what we had in that course and how comprehensive it was. We had business law, taxes, how to settle business debris, types of business, and all of that sort of thing, and handling management problems and take care of your people so they want to work for you. All those things are in that course, and the guy said on the other end of the phone, okay, that tells me, and we will place her where you have told us to place her, and they did, and I believe it was about a year and a half she graduated a lawyer. So it worked out pretty well.
Now let's share some of the cost here. Now I've looked at these colleges. They're loaning people money to go to college. We talked about that being kind of a banking scam, but how does getting a degree at some of the Bible college compare with going to Texas A&M or one of these well-known colleges? Of course, they do have to support their football teams, and Timothy Bible College doesn't have a football team.
No, we don't. I don't know. I haven't looked at their tuition and course cost and all of that. Of course, if you throw in room and board, that will run it up. But I think the average has been for most colleges and universities, especially the state ones, I believe, run between $20,000 to $30,000 a year. That also is based on having to go 2 or 4 years, maybe 6 years to get some kind of a paper. With us, you can get one of those papers anywhere from a year to 3 years, and the most expensive course we got, if I remember right, is somewhere around $10,000, and that's for the entire course, not per year. We also have scholarships available if you graduate from one of our little red schoolhouses. Then you get an automatic $1,000 scholarship to Timothy Bible College, and if you happen to go or do well enough at one of our schools that the principal of Yoakum School gives you a letter of recommendation, then you can get another $500 scholarship into Timothy Bible College. We don't make it a whole lot easier than that, but we even do payment plans. It's not about us getting money different driving force. We want to undumb down, if that's a fair word, the poor, dumb down Americans that really doesn't realize how bad this has been, how insidious this is, and the fabric of this country is, that we're, like you said, had this really started working and been terribly widespread when we started it, we wouldn't be in the fix we're in now. Lawyers would know what they were doing, doctors would know what they were doing, educators would be educating, home would be more of a home, and we would have more respect given to the parents, and we not even have, because it would have been generational by now, we would have been into the second generation, there would actually be parents that could legitimately homeschool their children and give them what they needed. But this dumbing down is so multi-generational that now the parents have a hard time helping their children, even if they have a good homeschooling program. And that's where we come in. We have our stuff on CD, so that really works pretty well. And if your child's old enough to stay home by themselves or get into a little group, then some adult can take care of the problem of a bunch of children alone out there doing something on their own. You solve the problem. And again, it puts back the idea of community, or communityism, we coined that word right there, rather than communism.
I said once, if communism was what it was cracked up to be and what they tried to present it, rather than a lie, I'd be all for it. But it's not. It's rule of the elite, and it was financed by the bankers. Jacob Schiff specifically sent enough gold to get Marx and Lenin, put them on a train to bring them to the Soviet Union, or to the Russia at the time, so they could murder the Tsar. And this all happened after the League of Nations failed, because two countries wouldn't go along with the League of Nations: the United States and Russia.
That's when we have a little bit of sense.
Yep.
And it's even worse now. If we do not resist the UN, we will be in worse shape than Russia ever thought about being. They will come in, they will take over, there will be martial law, and they will eradicate people like you and me first. We will be taken out.
We're on the red list, and folks, and let me do a kind of a public service announcement. One of the things that I've been demonized for, Jake, is starting the militia in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And my response to that's basically been, or what part of the Second Amendment don't you understand? The Southern Poverty Law and the ADL, the ADL, they tried to demonize me for starting the militias. They just didn't tell you, folks, that I did it in the governor's office. Now, one of my regular people here, and this is a man that's been tried to be demonized. I even had a woman on my show that did her best to demonize and belittle Rick Light. And I've got a link for Timothy Bible College up, and I've got a link up to well-regulated American militias here. But this email went out to all Texas sheriff this morning by Sheriff Elliott of Edwards County, Texas, in behalf of the Texas State Militia. Rick says, Sheriff Elliott had me draft this email for him. Hello to all our sheriffs in Texas. Dear Sheriffs of Texas, we at the Texas State Militia would love to invite all of you to a very special meeting here in Edwards County, Texas, at the Sheriff's Department in Rock Springs, May the 11th at 10 a.m. to announce a very exciting and historical event: the revival of the Citizens Militia according to subsection C of the Texas State Constitution. This event is being hosted by Sheriff Elliott of Edwards County. This meeting on the 11th is to introduce the commanders of the Texas State Militia, to give you their contacts and to familiarize you all with the Texas State Militia intent and structure layout of the citizen militia here in Texas under the TSM. There's a link to the Texas State Constitution on the constitutional and on the constitutionality of the citizen militia regarding reserve militia, and you can also get that at constitution.org USTX_law HTM. As we all know, there's been a growing interest in militia within the state of Texas and across the nation as well. This is a very good thing to see citizens wanting to be involved and help their states, to serve their communities. It is their right to do so legally and safely with the sheriff's supervision, working with the sheriff's deputies in any event of the sheriff's choosing, whether the event is a disaster or a man-made event. This is the Texas State Militia stance on these things: professionalism, safe unit structure, and serving the community. We realize that there can be a danger to the call of militia if we do not organize the citizens militia in a productive, safe way involving our county sheriff, so security and the quality of militia members are to be maintained. The Texas State Militia is structured in such a way. We can even further this organization with the valuable input of our sheriffs. Please visit our website at www.texasstatemilitia.com. We're excited at the prospect of having our sheriffs ear and their hearts, and we are seeking an endorsement from the Texas sheriffs across the state. We are law-abiding citizens that not only wish to strengthen our Second Amendment rights, but to also serve the community by working with our sheriffs to help them secure the counties in which we live. The Texas State Militia members are volunteers who cost nothing but some trust. We all know that our sheriffs are overburdened at times with many troubling things, and the TSM can help our sheriffs immensely. We are well-trained and disciplined. We are a well-regulated militia according to law. So please come to the meeting in Rock Springs to help this piece of Texas history thrive. And you can, they got a number here, 830-591-3177, or you can contact Sheriff Elliott in Rock Springs. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. I may try to make it there. So, Jake, this is, you know, it's not the demonization that they tried to do with me. You know, I worked with the governor, and they are working with the sheriff. They are doing it right. This is what Rick Like has been saying on my show for a number of years.
I got a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
They need to do this. They need to look at the potentially largest non-trained militia in the world and get news out to them of this sort of thing and get them involved. That is the
Hunters.
Licensed Texas Hunters. Amen.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Try to get their guns, Bubba.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Jake, I know you wanted to take off early today. Are you still?
Yeah, I've got a time conflict.
All right, sir. I want to thank you. I hope people. We've got your links up on the website, and I hope you check out the new Little Red Schoolhouse. I've got right under my company name. I think it was a picture that was hanging on Henrietta's wall. And I said, I gotta have that. It's, again, along with our...
I've got something. They need to look at different places for our church website. If somebody's interested. We need to give that up. We got ended up with a few problems with the billing on that. They didn't want to do that properly, so we just canceled it. We're working up a new website. Probably will be available in a day or two, and it will probably
if you need a website, you can do freeamerican.com/Timothy Bible College. And I'll post it.
So this Bible college is so good to go. This is
The Way Church. You can do anything that you want under my website, Free American.
Okay, let me get back with you on that.
All right, sir. And you have a great day.
And God bless all your people, your listeners.
Thank you very much.
We need them.
All right. God bless you. Bye now. All right. I will take some calls. Here, and do I have that? Where do I have that here? My Revolution Radio here. Should have all that. The 347-688-2902. I also have 855-655-8453, extension 805. I believe that's accurate. And if it's not, Richard will let me know. Now, you can also go to Ramsite, WRAMSITE.com, and get this letter from the sheriff and the information about that meeting. And folks, let me jump back here and let Gerald Celente. I'm going to bring Gerald Celente up. He was doing an interview, and I found that to be very, very interesting, because he's talking about Israel and their plan to start a third world war. I want you to listen to this, so you know it's not just me being anti-Semitic talking about the Jews or those that are coming on my site going kosher. I'm kosher. Listen to Gerald Celente.
The top news story, when you have a news story evolving and unraveling, such as Israel attacking Syria. Now, there's a number of things as trend forecasters that we look at. You'll often notice, Greg, that big events happen on weekends. For example, they closed the banks in Cyprus recently. They did it on a weekend. When Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act, he did it on New Year's Eve in 2011. And that, of course, stripped us of our Fifth, Sixth, and Fourth Amendment rights. So they do these things when people aren't paying attention. And Israel attacked Syria over the weekend. After the markets closed, it made the news. So he was the headline when that happened. Israel's strike on Syria hit arms from Iran. And I was thinking to myself, what if the headline read, Iran's strike on Israel hit arms from U.S.? What's the difference? Oh, I know the difference. Only Israel and the United States are allowed to have arms. Iran and Syria aren't allowed to have any. And God forbid Hezbollah should have. And when I say this story is one-sided, it's this one-sided fairy tale that Israel struggled. Syria stopped those bombs from flowing into the hands of Hezbollah. And of course, when you look at the facts that start coming out, it's kind of like what happened up in Boston. The story keeps changing. Oh, you remember up in Boston, those kids robbed a 7-Eleven. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, they were armed to the teeth. No, they weren't. They had one 9mm weapon, ostensibly, when they got caught. Oh, and that kid, when they had him in the boat, it was a face-off between the police. There were, 9,000 of them, against this kid with a pistol. And they find out the kid was just laying there. There wasn't nothing. Fairy tale. They hit these trucks that were just going over the Lebanon border, and they were packed with missiles. No, they didn't. They were attacking military sites in Damascus, as they did this time as well. And the reports vary, Greg, from 40 to 300 Now let's change this around a little bit. Suppose it was Tel Aviv that was bombed. Such a, by the way, these weapons that the Israelis were using, of course, highly sophisticated, and under U.S. agreements, any weaponry received by Israel from the United States, paid for, of course, by the American taxpayer, at a tune of over $3 billion a year, they're not supposed to be used to attack foreign countries. But be that as it may, I think they had a little bit more firepower than those pressure cookers up in Boston. But of course, this doesn't get any media, as you're pointing out, as ostensibly hundreds of people have been killed in an attack on a sovereign nation that has done nothing to threaten Israel. And before I end this, I would also like to talk about the misinformation coming out from President Obama. Of course, they always say that Israel has the right to defend itself. I want to make this really clear. So does everybody else, including me and you.
Iran said that they're going to have a crushing response. Syria, a high-ranking member, said the door is wide open. They also, a high-ranking member of the Syrian, Assad regime, said that this is an act of war. Other people are calling it an act of war. Is this going to touch off a wider regional war, if not a world war? I mean, Kerry's up talking to the Russians. They have a naval base in Tartus on the Syrian coast. I mean, this thing could spiral out of control, could it not? Or am I just being chicken little?
No, it is spiraling out of control. As I said, suppose it wasn't Damascus, it was Tel Aviv that was struck. This is a major city. This isn't some backwater town. This is a metropolitan city that was attacked. And as I was saying, the spin coming out, Obama also saying that Hezbollah's threatened to attack Tel Aviv. That's right. He said that if Israel attacked again in Lebanon. But nobody is ever supposed to strike back, neither the United States nor Israel. They're the only ones that are allowed to attack other countries. And when other countries retaliate, it's the golden rule, by the way, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Oh, they cry and scream, terrorism, terrorism. No, it's not. It's payback. And that's what we're going to see more of. It's payback. Look what happened when France invaded Mali. As soon as it happened, the Malians said they were going to pay back the language. We wrote it in the Trench Journal, just as it happened. They said they were France was going to suffer a payback. Virtually days later, there was the Algerian hostage crisis. So, when are people going to get it in their heads that you cannot attack other countries without them not attacking you?
So let's talk about the chessboard here. You were involved, the U.S. and Kennedy was sent a few weeks ago, gave Israel the green light. That's what was reported. Well, it's pretty good report because a couple of weeks later, we had these multiple attacks on the research facilities and these missiles with reportedly 185-mile range, which to the Israelis, to their good, they're afraid of these missiles raining down on them, hitting just about every target in Israel. Lots of sin to go around. Not talking about that. Is this thing getting ready to spin out of control? I mean,
it is out of
we
control.
have armored divisions of pieces of it in northern Jordan. We have our naval ships in the Mediterranean. Russia has their ships in the Mediterranean. This is getting to be a bit of a pressure cooker, isn't it?
It is. It is out of control already. What are people waiting for? An Archduke Ferdinand moment? And that's all that is. People are waiting for the flashpoint. These things flashpoints don't happen overnight. They ignite from all of these firestorms that they keep setting off. So as you mentioned about Jordan, the United States is training these so-called Syrian rebels, these Islamist fundamentalists in Jordan. they have Patriot missile batteries on the borders of Turkey going into Syria, facing into Syria. Now you have this moron Mendez, the senator from New Jersey, talking about supplying the rebels with more armaments. And by the way, you look up who this little weasel clown is, this little piece of crap, Mendez, and what is he's caught in prostitution scandals and money changing scandals, buying, getting kickbacks that they call political campaigns for doing dirty deals with his buddies, and now he's out there. We have to send more arms to the Syrian rebels, and we're going to vet them. What are you talking about? And the same thing with John Insane McCain and Lindsey Graham. How could people listen to these little weasels that are screaming for war? And most Americans, by the way, they couldn't find Syria on the map if you gave them, a circle with 15 countries around it to try to target it. So they're taking us to war once again under a weapons of mass destruction kind of scenario, but this time it's, if they cross that red line of using chemical weapons on their people, then that's just too much for us. And once again, Greg, it's kitty talk. A red line, no options off the table. You know how sick I am of hearing these BS lines? How about, again, when you look at the reports coming out from the United Nations saying that, hey, wait a minute, it wasn't the Syrian government that used those chemical weapons, it was the rebels. Yeah, no, don't believe them. Believe us. We're going to use the same investigators that said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So it's one lie built upon another, and again, when all else fails, with the economy declining, they take you to war.
Is this going to be the final nail in the coffin for the economy? I mean, is this going to kibosh the QE, kill what's remaining of the weak economy? If oil gets cut off, or if Iran does strike Israel, is Israel going to then strike Iran's nuclear program? Are they going to shut off the Strait of Hormuz? Are they going to close down, the Suez Canal? Are they going to start choking the lifeblood oil of the world, and everything, shoots up? Gas is $8, $9, $10 a gallon. Interest rate swaps go haywire. Markets implode. Could that happen? Will that happen?
All of the above. As I've said many times, if Israel attacks Iran, it's the beginning of World War III. I've said this scenario, it has to be a couple of hundred times. History is repeating itself. The panic of 2008 mirrors the crash of 1929. Following the crash of 1929, we went into the Great Depression. There's a depression going on. You look at John Williams' shadow stats, it's 23% unemployment when you look at the people that have dropped off the unemployment rolls, temporary workers and part-time workers wanting full-time jobs. You look at the unemployment rate in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy. These are depression level in some of those areas, and they still call them a recession. Almost 28% in Greece and Spain, and they're still calling it a recession. Again, crash, depression, currency wars. There's currency wars going on. All of the countries, Japan, United States, Europeans, the Chinese, they're all trying to devalue their currencies so they can export more product. Trade wars and then real wars. And that's what we're seeing again. And you had mentioned briefly about the ports in Syria where the Russians use as a port, as well as the Chinese. It's the only port in the Mediterranean that's open to either the Russians or the Chinese. This is a proxy war against Iran, because once Syria is choked off and choked, then Iran is left alone, surrounded by enemies. So that's what we're really looking at here. The end game is Iran, and as I've said also, these are the Persians. They've been around a long time. This isn't beating Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein or Assad. This is a real power. People forget that Iraq fought Iran for 8 years in the 1980s. A war started, by the way, by Jimmy Carter, carried on by Reagan. And the Iranians lost 1 million people and didn't give up 1 inch of land.
Gerald Celente. So if we're going to be looking at this Syrian situation, where are we going to be in 6 months, in a year, or 3 months?
It's hard to go by a timetable, because when you even listen to the Syrians and the Iranians, I mean, Syria's no match for Israel. You know, they have these old MiGs, you know. I mean, Israel has the most advanced weaponry outside the United States. So they're not going to do anything. We're going to see it, I believe, in forms of what they're going to call terrorist strikes. Maybe a little dirty bomb going off over, maybe in Tel Aviv. That kind of thing happening. And then escalating from there. And I don't believe Iran is not going to attack anybody. Iran will respond to an attack, but they won't initiate one. But of course I say that, but who knows how it will be framed? Because after all, Greg, you certainly remember the Gulf of Tonkin incident that got the United States into the Vietnam War. And it was a big lie. It never happened the way they said it did. And you also, as I mentioned, you remember how we began the Iraq War. You know, it was because of weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda that didn't exist. But who cares? And then, of course, there was the Afghan War. You remember what we were going to Afghanistan for, or maybe you forgot. It was to get those bad guys, them Al-Qaedas, and Saddam, what's his name? Osama bin Laden. And that's why we went into Afghanistan. And again, we've written about this in chapter and verse about all the lies that were told and how they're forgotten and how the wars continue.
I guess your prognosis for the next year or two, it looks like we're going to be into some pretty heavy war, not world war. Is that right?
Yes. And what's the saddest thing about it, particularly in America, is that this is so against what this nation was founded upon. The beliefs of our founding fathers, and where it's been taken by presidential psychopaths and sociopaths. You know, George Washington, I mean, there was a real commander-in-chief, not one that plays basketball or was in the National Guard or never in the military. Of course, I'm going back to Obama, Bush, and Clinton. And they're not commanders-in-chief. If they're commanders-in-chief, let them lead the charge. And when I talk about America, of course, you know, I know the slaughter that went on and how the native populations and the inequalities that existed in this country in its growing stages. Nonetheless, this was a great country at one time. And now it's totally off base upon which it was founded upon. There should be outrage from every American citizen about becoming involved in foreign entanglements. And I wrote about the blowback that would happen long before it's happened. In my book, Trends 2000, I coined the term, Crusades 2000. The United States would be waking up in the new millennium, and a crusades would be raging. I wrote that back in 1995. So you can see where all this is leading. And sadly, it's leading us down the path of destruction, and in a way that's so against everything that this nation has been founded upon.
You are predicting world war coming. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, I am. If the trends continue, and if the people don't do something to stop it. You know, one of our trends journals, the top trends for 2012, I have a solution. prime minister, chancellor that declares war against another country has to lead the charge. If it was good enough for Washington and Napoleon and Alexander the Great, it should be good enough for these guys. If they don't want to lead the charge, then let's have the world leader face-off, fight to the finish at the Arena di Verona, that beautifully restored Roman amphitheater in Verona, and let them go at it. You want to take the cat out? Go for it. Rule number 2. Anybody that's for war, and I remember what happened with the Iraq War and the Afghan War. I saw more yellow ribbons and American flags flying than you could imagine in a lifetime. Anybody that supports the war, go fight the war. And if you can't fight the war because you're too elderly or infirm, send your money, send your kids, and send your wife and whoever else to go do the fighting. They need you over there. We're outsourcing all our war support to military contractors. Rule number 3, the golden rule. When they retaliate, don't cry and bellyache and call it terrorism. It's payback. And rule number 4, let the people vote. The burden of the war falls on our shoulders. I mentioned the 58,000 that were killed in Vietnam, the 250,000 that have committed suicide. I mentioned how about all those Iraqi and Afghan veterans that have fought wars for nothing, and the dead ones, 6 dead this week in Afghanistan, and their families that have been ruined. So, let the people vote. We do not have a representative form of government in the United States. We have a gang of 535 senators and congressmen deciding for 315 million of us. If we could vote online, if we could bank online, we could vote online. Let the people vote to go to war. And you will see, if Gerald Celenti's 4 rules of peace are initiated, there will be no more wars.
Gerald Celente, publisher and editor of the Trends Journal, thank you for joining us today on...
All right, that was Gerald Celente, and one of the world's leading terrorists. This is a news story that's coming up. One of the world's leading terrorists, the mass murderer Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, has been summoned to China, where he will be confronted with evidence of his involvement in the March 11th, 2011 nuclear and tsunami terror attack against Japan, according to Chinese government sources. The evidence is a tape-recorded phone call to then Prime Minister Nato Kan, in which Netanyahu threatened to destroy all Japan's nuclear reactors if Kan did not order the Japanese government to write off its holdings of U.S. government debt, according to Japanese military intelligence. In exchange for sweeping this issue under the carpet, the 180 BRICS BRICS alliance will demand an end to all further warmongering in the Middle East. The Israeli use of a nuclear bunker buster bomb against Syria just before Netanyahu's departure was a futile gesture of defiance as the worldwide crackdown on the Sabbatean satanic mafia unfolds. This information is coming from Jim Kirwan. In a related development, a UK Police and Crime Commission have opened an investigation into the Thames Valley Police, Sarah Thornton in particular, concerning, among other things, the murder of bioweapons specialist Dr. David Kelly. This is part of a wider police investigation into the cabal that fooled the UK government into participating in the invasion of Iraq. The heads of MI5, the London Metropolitan Police Counter-Terror Squad, and the UK Special Forces have all left their posts, according to an MI5 source. Several journalists have also been arrested, he said. Many witnesses of substance, military, are coming forth in support of having realized the UK police have been acting outside correct procedures. In many instances, according to an MI5 source, the emphasis will now be on internal investigations of corruption in the police and civil service, the source said. That's what we need here right now. That's the Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Jeremy Haywood, the head of civil service, will also find his position under close scrutiny. Then Prime Minister Tony Blair has already been investigated and has basically sung like a canary. Blair has also already implicated many EU leaders as having accepted bribes in exchange for allowing the Soviet Union model European Union to gradually usurp the sovereignty of European nation states. This, of course, is a preliminary to investigations that will finally bring justice to the perpetrators of 9/11 terror and the mind control attack against the U.S. The wheels of justice will roll towards George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, Frank Carlucci, Michael Chertoff, and the entire fascist cabal that has seized control of the U.S. following the rigged year 2000 election, according to patriotic CIA and Pentagon sources. The question remains just how far down the rabbit hole the whole crackdown on the perpetrators of 9/11, 3/11, and related events will go. The problem is concentrated at the top, and it is very difficult for military and law enforcement types to used to following orders from above to take action against their superiors. When you have a Supreme Court that has been threatened and intimidated into submission, a Congress and Senate that have been mostly bribed, and a president who is a puppet, then going through them is not a realistic option in dealing with the criminal fascist takeover of the U.S. My understanding is the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pentagon are the best hope for restoring the U.S. Republic and freeing the American people. What they need to understand is that it is not going to be any court case that will settle the problem. If the American people are to be freed, the military need to temporarily take over the key centers of power. They need to send troops to occupy the following places: the Federal Reserve Board branches, the two big-to-fail financial institutes, the Congress, the Senate, the White House, the Supreme Court, the Justice Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the CIA, and NSA, the major media companies, and the Council on Foreign Relations. Once this is done, it will be a fairly simple job to figure out who has been part of the fascist cabal. Follow the money. Anyone who is living way beyond their salary and cannot explain the source of money should be suspended pending further investigation. There's also a need to remove all U.S. Israeli dual citizens from any government offices. Dual loyalty and service to your government are not compatible. And I'm sure the Jew lovers and the Israeli lovers on the website will disagree with that, but they can kiss my ass. And if you don't know what FU means, be sure to call me up after the show and I'll explain it to you, you dumb SOBs. The Pentagon types rightly point out the lesson of history that the military are not good at running governments as the reason they have not taken action yet. That's true, but the military are very good at restoring order and then returning to their barracks. The military take pride in the fact they've never interfered in government since the founding of the United States. However, they need to realize that never before in the history of the United States has the country been surreptitiously taken over by a foreign power. This, of course, brings us back to Israel. Israel was founded by Jews who murdered other Jews in order to force them out of their European homeland as part of a criminally insane project to carry out ancient biblical prophecies. It sounds too far-fetched for us normal people to fathom, but history makes it clear that this is exactly what is going on. That this is why there's been no solution to the Palestinian issue despite 5 decades of peace negotiation. These people do not want peace. They want to take over the entire Middle East, in order to trigger their planned Armageddon. In the previous article, I mentioned the fifth element as is present in all that has gone on in the star-crossed universe of the new millennium. It is perhaps difficult to see the natural balance and order of the planet in the current calls for regional and global wars, but it is possible to know part of the truth by looking back to a recent failure of the New World Order in global commerce. They announced their plan for their global delivery of goods worldwide with something called just-in-time marketing. The New World Order, via entities like Walmart, decided to eliminate their warehouses and rely upon the just-in-time ordering of goods to be delivered directly from the order desk to the customers without the need for costly warehouses or difficult delays. They could be eliminated by simply using just-in-time marketing. At the time, the manufacturer, the packaging, the shipment facilities, and the capability to deliver goods on time and the good condition were in the hands of the same people worldwide. This method would free up warehouses that could be sold off and would concentrate ordering and delivery by using computers to make all the necessary links that would change commerce completely. That system failed. All right, we're out of time.
We're off air, Clay.
Thank you.
Right on. Good show, buddy.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Hey, I'll talk to you. We'll catch up on Monday morning or Sunday or Monday morning.
Yeah, David will be my guest on Monday. David
Right on.
Koch.
That's what I like, David.
Okay, bud.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Okay, right on.
Bye-bye.
Okay, have a good day, Clay, and a good weekend, buddy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.